2023 has been a pretty solid year for movies so far, even with a few notable missteps, and a testament to the ingenuity of talented filmmakers bringing their distinct cinematic visions to the big screen. And while it's easy to reduce this down to confident directors working with good scripts and committed casts, there's always more to it than just that. In the case of these movies, each had a nifty production secret which played a large role in their overall success, no matter that audiences totally took it for granted. I'm Ewan, this is What Culture, and here are 10 secrets that made recent movies awesome. Number 10. The nuclear explosion was recreated practically. Oppenheimer. While Oppenheimer was in production, director Christopher Nolan revealed that the historic Trinity nuclear bomb test had been recreated practically for the film. This prompted some very funny, hopefully not serious, speculation that Nolan actually detonated a nuclear weapon for real in the deserts of somewhere. But obviously Nolan loves to use practical effects over CGI, which is maybe why it's not as surprising as it should be that he executed the jaw-dropping test scene with entirely in-camera effects for Oppenheimer, employing a combination of miniatures, forced perspective photography, and other techniques to pull it off without computer assistance. It's known that Nolan went to the New Mexico desert to shoot the sequence, and the explosion involved use of gasoline, propane, aluminium powder, and magnesium to generate a sufficiently large and bright reaction on screen. Needless to say, please don't go and try and recreate your own Nolan Oppenheimer explosion at home. That would be bad. Number 9. The sets and props were subtly scaled down to feel more toy-like. Barbie. What better film to follow up our previous entry with than the other end of the Barbenheimer sandwich, Greta Gerwig's deliciously tasty and phenomenally successful movie, Barbie. Now, there was far more to Barbie Land's huge sets than just splashing pink all over the place. Many buildings and props were scaled down to feel more toy-like when the actors interacted with them. For instance, the Barbie Dreamhouse's rooms had their scale reduced by 23% from life-size measurements to make the actors feel smaller. And similarly, Barbie's pink 1956 Chevrolet Corvette, a banging ride by the way, was made smaller to more closely resemble how the toy version of the Corvette looks when Barbie is sat in it. Just, yeah, killer production design all around. Number 8. James Gunn didn't use any virtual sets. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Last year's Thor: Love and Thunder was the first film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to make use of stagecraft virtual production tech, which was first popularized through its use on Disney's Star Wars series, The Mandalorian. Perhaps better known as the Volume, stagecraft effectively replaces traditional green screens with a baked-in, digitally produced backdrop that the actors can see and react to, like a flashier, more techy version of rear projection. It's mind-bogglingly impressive tech when used correctly, and grants actors and directors many on-set advantages, even if it's also a tool that, like any other, has its own pros and cons. And Love and Thunder proved that stagecraft was better used sparingly, to say the least, as many criticized the film's environments for feeling too small, barren, and very obviously restricted by technical and spatial limitations. Basically, the film looked small, a similar issue that befell last year's Kenobi series, which felt more like a few guys in a room swinging sticks at each other than the grand space opera of Star Wars once envisioned by George Lucas. Thankfully, director James Gunn himself revealed back in 2021 that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 wouldn't be using stagecraft at all, due to its sets being too big to accommodate the tech. And doesn't the film look way better for it? The combination of vast, expansive sound stages and real-world locations lend Guardians Volume 3 a tactile quality that simply cannot be replicated by the more sterile confines of a small virtual production setup. Number 7. The King of Jordan lent the filmmakers a chopper for the opening sequence. John Wick Chapter 4. John Wick Chapter 4 certainly begins as it means to go on, kicking off with an electrifying set piece in Morocco as John races across the desert on horseback while gunning down the Elder's cronies. It's a clearly lavishly expensive sequence which sets the tone for the rest of the film quite nicely, and yet it only came together as it did thanks to some help from as high up as it gets. The set piece was shot in Jordan, and the crew found themselves unable to reach a remote part of the desert in order to capture a gorgeous establishing sunrise shot as part of the scene's wider visual homage to Lawrence of Arabia. But when the King of Jordan heard about the problem, he offered to help out, being a fan of the John Wick franchise and all. According to director Chad Stahelski, the King personally loaned the production a Black Hawk helicopter to fly the crew members out to the spot and capture the eye-wateringly beautiful sunset that appears in the film. Now, that's how you know you're making a banger of a movie. Number 6. 6 animation styles were combined into one: Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is one of the most visually stunning films ever made, and while it's apparent that the film draws from numerous different animation styles, it's easy to take for granted just how many. The filmmakers ultimately incorporated 6 distinct animation styles to reflect each of the 6 major universes depicted throughout the film. First and foremost, there's the aesthetic established in Into the Spider-Verse from Miles' universe, Spider-Gwen's watercolor universe, Spider-Man 2099's neo-futurist world, Spider-Man India's borrowing from the Spider-Man India comics, Spider-Punk's handcrafted look, and the Spot's jittery, inky, hole-filled style. It would have been so easy for these aesthetics to clash in a jarring or overly chaotic way, yet they ultimately only end up complementing one another and ensuring that Across the Spider-Verse is by far the year's biggest eye-popping treat. Number 5. A real functioning town was built: Asteroid City. Asteroid City is a gorgeous, brilliantly acted piece of work from Wes Anderson, unlike anything else we've gotten so far this year. The ensemble dramedy takes place in the titular remote American desert town, and the locale effectively becomes one of the movie's prominent characters in its own right. And the reason this works so well, production designer Adam Stockhausen literally had a functioning town built on Spanish farmland. Yep, the town you see in the movie isn't merely a superficial facade. It straight up had its own underground electricity, plumbing, and sewage systems, and the crew also built a surrounding desert area stretching for half a mile. That's commitment. Number 4. Over 6,500 liters of fake blood were used. Evil Dead Rise. Shortly after Evil Dead Rise wrapped filming in October 2021, writer and director Lee Cronin revealed that the production had used more than 6,500 liters, or 1,717 US gallons for all you non-metric system lovers out there, of fake blood to realize the sequel in its full gnarly glory. To be clear, that's 1,300 human bodies worth of blood. That's a big ol' human meatball of blood. Given that budget-conscious studios are growing increasingly wary of using physical on-set fake blood due to the time and monetary cost of cleaning it up and resetting it each time, it's never a guarantee that even the most storied of horror franchises, like Evil Dead, will stay the practical course. And while it's clear from watching the movie that there was little to no digital blood used throughout, the brain-breaking amount of gore that Cronin had shipped in for the shoot really demonstrates his commitment to keeping things as old school as possible. Though not quite Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell burning the set down to keep warm levels of old school, obviously, and thankfully. Cronin also revealed that the production required so much fake blood that they had to rent out an industrial kitchen to make it all. Man, being a Hollywood blood guy must be so fun, just getting all the blood everywhere. Great time. Number 3. Michael Jordan personally selected Viola Davis to play his mother, Air. Air may be a corporate biopic about the origin story of a shoe, but it's also a surprisingly engaging and entertaining drama by way of its taut script, firm direction, and cracking ensemble cast. The easy acting MVP here is Viola Davis as Michael Jordan's mother Dolores, and while Davis hasn't ever seen a movie she couldn't class up with her sheer presence alone, there's one very specific reason that she ended up in this role. Though MJ himself wasn't actively involved in Air's development, he did nevertheless meet with director Ben Affleck, and when Affleck asked him who he wanted to portray his dear mother, he simply replied, quote, "It has to be Viola Davis." And Jordan evidently got his wish, with Davis not only appearing in the film, but stealing every single scene she's in. Number 2. The Turtles' voice actors recorded their lines together. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem received particular acclaim for the central vocal performances of Micah Abbey, Jamon Brown Jr., Nicholas Cantu, and Brady Noon as the Turtles, who, unlike just about every prior big screen iteration of the characters, actually felt like honest-to-God teenagers. And while the filmmakers were absolutely right to cast real teenage actors in the role, there's one added trick which ensured their palpable flesh and blood chemistry would come across during dialogue recording sessions. While most animated films of the various cast members record their dialogue separately for logistical reasons, this production arranged for Abbey, Brown, Cantu, and Noon to always record together alongside whoever else is in a given scene, lending a more natural flow to their interactions. And number 1. The doll was the combination of animatronics, actors, and CGI. M3gan. The genuinely impressive technical execution of killer android horror movie Megan left many moviegoers wondering quite how the relatively low-budget $12 million production pulled it all off. Animatronics, VFX, clever practical trickery with actual actors, an actual homicidal robot? Tell me, I need to know! Well, as it turns out, it was a shrewd combination of the first 3. There wasn't an actual killer robot on set. Rather than hedge his bets on a single technique, director Gerard Johnston had an animatronic puppet of Megan built for close-up shots and dialogue scenes, while a flesh and blood actress, Amy Donald, performed more complex movements the puppet couldn't, specifically during the movie's action sequences, and I imagine that iconic dance sequence that we all know and love dearly. Donald received coaching to make her movements appear more robotic, and as a cherry on top, CGI was employed to ensure a seamless fusion between the animatronic and Donald's human performance. The end result is shockingly consistent for such a low-budget feature, and proved absolutely vital in the concept's successful execution, enough that it grossed over $180 million worldwide, and prompting Universal to speedily greenlight a sequel, which is now due out in early 2025. And there you have it, 10 secrets that made recent movies awesome. Any of your faves from this year that we missed? Shout them out down in the comments below. Also be sure to drop the video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more if you fancy some of that too. Either way, I've been Ewan, this has been What Culture, and I'll hopefully catch you next time. Bye!